Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Mongolian pork chops. This is the signature dish at one of my favorite Napa Valley restaurants, Mustard's Grill, and I'll give you lots of background info on the blog, of course, but for now I'm just going to show you how to make it. And by the way, I'm not sure how authentic this is. I haven't been to Mongolia in ages, and I think the last time I was there I brown bagged it. So I don't know if this is really Mongolian, but that's what Chef Cindy calls it at Mustard's Grill, so that's what we're going to call it. And it starts with a very simple marinade. So into a bowl I'm going to put some hoisin sauce, I'm going to add some crushed garlic and some crushed ginger, and then some hot sauce. I know at Mustard's they use Tabasco. I'm using Sriracha. We're also going to put in a splash of sesame oil, some soy sauce, and then an array of vinegars. I'm going to go with red wine vinegar, rice vinegar, and sherry vinegar. All right, so after the sour, we need some sweet. I'm going to add some white sugar. All right, I'm also going to put some pepper in here. We're going to use white pepper and black pepper. And white pepper has a very interesting type of heat that you don't get from red and black peppers. All right, so we're going to take a whisk. We're going to whisk that thoroughly, and the marinade is done. We're just going to set that aside and get our pork chops ready, which are these glorious bone-in, extra thick cut pork chops. Go talk to a real butcher with one of those handlebar mustaches and get some beautiful thick pork chops. And when you have those gorgeous chops, I want you to put them in a plastic bag and then listen very carefully. You're just going to pour over about half the marinade, maybe a little more than half. Let's say 60%. That's what we're going to use to marinate the pork chops with. The rest we're going to use as a glaze as it grills. So just reserve about 40% of the marinade. You're going to have plenty and set that aside. Of course, you're going to seal up the bag nice and tight, and you're going to refrigerate for a minimum of 3 or 4 hours. I think 6 to 8 hours is optimum. And yes, you can leave this overnight. All right. And while that's marinating, we're going to make a really unique mustard sauce that gets served alongside this, just like at Mustard's Grill. So in a heat-proof stainless steel bowl, I'm going to add some red wine vinegar and some dry mustard. Now, you can use that really hot Chinese mustard. I'm using the stuff in the yellow can, the Coleman's double strength, but pretty much any hot mustard powder will work. To that, we're going to add 1 egg yolk and some sugar. And I know this looks like a bizarre combination, but trust me, it really works. So give that a good mix with your whisk. We're going to head over to the stove and over low heat, I'm going to whisk that continuously over the flame until it gets hot and slightly thickened. Now, 1 egg yolk and that much liquid, it's not going to get super thick. All you're waiting for is till the mixture gets hot. You may see a very faint wisp of steam. Really, all we're doing here is cooking the egg yolk. Once it looks like that, we're going to take it off the heat, and then I'm going to season mine up a little differently than the official recipe, but I'm going to add a little bit of cayenne, a little bit of Dijon mustard, and then I like to add just a little touch of turmeric. Now, I'm not a big turmeric fan, but I do like what it does to the color of the sauce, and just that small amount gives it a nice little background note. And then last but not least, this is finished with creme fraiche, which is basically sour cream, and you can use sour cream, but if you can get creme fraiche or you can make your own, we have a video for that. That works even better. Of course, something like this, you're going to taste and adjust the seasoning, but keep in mind, this is not necessarily supposed to taste great on your fingertip. This is supposed to taste great on that grilled marinated pork, okay? Once you're happy with that, just refrigerate till needed. And it's on to the chops, which at this point have been marinating for 8 hours. So after I remove these from the marinade and wipe off any excess, I am going to lightly season them, and then you're free to cook these any way you want. But what is traditional and how they do it at Mustard's, they grill it over charcoal. You just can't use direct heat, okay? So I'm only using high heat here to sear the outside to get some nice black grill marks. And then I'm pushing the coals away from the center. All right, the grill's still hot around the pork, but not underneath. If you have flame underneath the pork, that marinade, that glaze will simply catch on fire, and you will be staring at what looks like 2 pieces of black charcoal, okay? It might be delicious on the inside, but the outside is going to not look good. So I'm going to have mine over indirect medium heat. I did close the cover in between bastings here to keep the heat down even a little more. And I'll just keep brushing that reserved marinade on both sides until you've built up an amazing, thick, glossy glaze. All right, everybody loves glossy glazes. Who doesn't love glossy glazes? Nobody. And those took me, after I seared and gave them the grill marks on high heat, those took me about 25 minutes over sort of indirect medium heat to finish. I was shooting for an internal temperature of 140, which is just how I like mine. Or do it your way. You're the boss of your dry, overcooked meat. But I go for 140, and at that point, it was perfectly done, and I was ready to enjoy this amazing pork chop experience. So I pulled those off the grill. Of course, I let it rest a few minutes. And there you go. Mongolian pork chops are traditionally served with mashed potatoes and braised cabbage. Of course, I'll show you that sometime. And we're going to cut into this, and it is just spectacular. That marinade really produces a juicy, flavorful meat. Just the right balance of tangy, salty, sweet. Look at that. Look at how juicy that is. And then you got that mustard sauce. That little bit of richness from the butter fat from the creme fraiche. The tanginess from the vinegar balanced by the sugar. And everything elevated by that sharp, nasally heat from the mustard. Just a great, great combination. Anyway, thank you, Cindy Paulson. Thank you, Mustard's Grill, for the inspiration. And thank you, Mongolia, for being there and having this named after your country. Anyway, hope you give that a try. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and way more information, as usual. And as always, enjoy.